Good evening and welcome to the December 12th, 2018 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and it's a pleasure to have you here, whether you're here in the room with us or whether you're taking advantage of one of our opportunities to view us remotely, either on our streaming live stream feed on our webpage or on digital cable channel 1303. We welcome your watching. We welcome your participation. Tonight's meeting agenda and all the supporting material, if you're here in the room, are on the back table. But if you're watching us remotely, you can go to the town's webpage, www.townofbrighton.org, and all of the same material that we're reviewing is on that webpage, so you can follow along with us. And we're glad you have the chance to do that. We're going to start, as we always do, with the pledge to the flag. I'll ask Councilmember Warner if he would lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we do at every board meeting, we give the public the opportunity to participate through our open forum. The open forum really is an opportunity for you to address the board on any matter, whether it's on tonight's agenda or not. I would say we do have, if you're here for our public hearing on tree removal, and you would like your comments included in the record of that public hearing, I would ask that you wait. That will be one of the very first items that we'll call, and share your input with us at that time. But if you would like to participate in the open forum, and by the way, I would mention that if you are watching us remotely and would like to be a part of the open forum from whatever remote location you're at, you can call in. The number is 303-3060. That's 303-3060. And you can give your comment or ask your question, and it will be relayed up to me. If you are deaf or if you are hearing impaired and would like to comment through our TDD line, that number is 784-5205, 784-5205 for our TDD line. And with that, we'll begin the open forum. Is there anyone that would like to address the board tonight during our open forum? Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. For those who don't know, my name is Josh Barth. I'm the County Legislator for District 24, which incorporates parts of Southeast Rochester and North Central Brighton. And I'm here to give one of my periodic reports to the town board. As most of you know, the county legislature met last night, and they did they began at 6 o'clock in the evening and ended at 11:45, right before midnight. So it was a busy night, and we did in fact primarily talk about the county budget, which is a document that encompasses about $1.2 billion worth of spending. At that meeting, however, there were over 40 public speakers there talking about their concerns and their things they want to see addressed in the budget. I think, frankly, that's a testament to the county as a whole. Most of them spoke about early intervention, which has made the newspapers, and called for the county to take action in the face of state inaction. And I won't go into the details except to say that this is a crisis that has been long in the making, and the responsibility lies primarily with the state, but the county has a role as well. And they were in fact calling upon the county to step up to that role and to, in this particular case, fund 6 permanent early intervention service coordinator positions. And that was one of their major concerns. Another major concern that was brought up was the use of sanctions to punish individuals receiving services and resulting oftentimes in homelessness. And that was another major concern brought forth by the public. We offered during this process 2 amendments. We were trying to be direct and frankly succinct in our priorities that we wanted to express as minority members of the caucus, of the County Legislature, and we offered an amendment to offer funds to support the hiring of 6 early intervention service coordinators. That was rejected. And then we offered a second, a related amendment to increase the number of assistant health service coordinators from 14 to 20 in the program, and that was rejected as well. And that was basically going for the same thing, but for 2 different routes depending upon civil service definitions, and that's why we had to do it that way. The Monroe County budget did pass. We passed on a vote from 17 to 12. Before that occurred, there were several hours of conversation, and I'll just highlight a few of the major topics that went into this the budget decision. We were talking about tax rates and taxes themselves. So as you may have heard, there was a tax rate decrease of 10 cents on every $1,000 of assessed value, but there's also a $7.3 million tax increase in the same budget. And this was, it seems like a nitpicking detail, but it's really kind of critical to understanding what are the implications for this budget. And in fact, this $7.3 million increase is the greatest increase we've seen since 2006, actually. So it's significant. The interesting thing about this, and we discussed this as well, is that no one actually pays 8.89 cents per $1,000 assessed value. No one does. We all assess differently depending upon where we live. So if you live in the town of Pittsford versus the town of Brighton, you've got a different base rate. And it gets more confusing because not only is that we have different rates that we pay, we have different levies that we pay. We pay different amounts. So you have your basic tax rate that the administration likes to talk about for $8.89 nowadays on average, but no one actually pays that amount directly. But in addition to that, we have the county services rate, which is additional 99 cents per $1,000 assessed, a delinquent taxes rate, an additional 20 cents per $1,000, the Pure Water's capital rate, an additional 49 cents per $1,000, and an erroneous assessment rate, which is, it varies dramatically, but it's a little bit more than a penny per $1,000. All in all, that adds up to about $10.67 of taxes per $1,000 of assessed value. There are more complications. It's reduced as well based on the sales tax credit. But the point being is our taxes and how we do that in Monroe County are a bit of a mess in that it's, I would say, deliberately meant to be very difficult to understand what's actually going on. And so this actually led to a number of us to be concerned about how accurate the budget was. And we had some issues with the accuracy and transparency of the budget. So to start on the most basic level, in the past years and in this year, there are performance measures that the budget includes. How many services were delivered, how many FOIL requests were received, how many inspections were done, things like that. In this budget, there are several dozen performance measures that were just simply eliminated. They were taken away. We have no idea what's happening moving forward anymore. And I, for one, find that to be rather troubling. In addition, the revenues that go into funding a balanced budget, so you have a budget that's going to be balanced or not balanced, you need to know how much you're spending and how much you're earning. To this date, we don't know all the revenues out there. We just don't know. They weren't shared with us. They're not on the budget. There weren't any documents. So that was problematic as well. And finally, there was misleading language in the budget itself. If you look at the budget, page 4, and you read the county executive's message, and I'm saying this because it's a document, and I specifically said in the meeting, in public, is this an error? Was this a mistake? Is it a typo? The quote was, "I am proud that my proposed 2019 Monroe County budget will deliver a tax cut for our hardworking taxpayers." And that is, by definition, not true. It's delivering a tax rate cut and just delivering a tax increase. And I asked, is this true? And they smiled at me, literally smiled and said, that means it's a tax cut to the tax rate. And in fact, that's gobbledygook. And I told them that, in fact, I consider that to be disingenuous. And at that point, I could not vote for that budget. Other topics that came up were, in addition to early intervention reimbursements, was preschool services reimbursements, retiree health benefits, sanctions. So sanctions are, penalties laid upon those receiving social services that often results in negative consequences to the recipient. And most challenging, most difficult, I would say, is that when it results in homelessness. And then finally, FOIL requests as well, and how the FOIL requests filled and things along those lines. And at the end of the day, I found that to be a rather troubling document, and I personally could not support it, and I wanted to explain that to the town and to anyone who might be watching. And so with that is my report on what happened last night. I would only add that we had 40 public participants last night at the Ways and Means meeting. Last Thursday, we had over almost 50. This is a testament to how important our population, our citizens, find these budget decisions, and how discouraging it can be when they don't adjust to the needs of the day, which this one in particular did not. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. In addition to the substantive issues, which are very real, and particularly the early intervention, where there is, I gather, a bit of a stopgap fix.
It's a stopgap response. It's definitely not a stopgap fix.
Thanks. That's a better terminology. Absolutely right. To what is a very, very important. I have heard from people in Brighton with the concern about early intervention and how important early intervention is, and those other substantive issues. But I do also want to go back, as we have done repeatedly over the years, because process matters as well. And in particular, and we're not perfect in Brighton. I wouldn't for a moment claim that. But I do think that openness, which we manifest in, the many ways that our meetings are broadcast to the public, but openness in how we deliberate and approve of important matters like our budget. We start our budget process in June. We have a series of public meetings, workshops where every single department presents their request, meetings of our committees that are held, starting in July and August on a capital improvement plan, and then on a budget itself. But most importantly, all of that is done before November.
Yes.
We approve a budget every year in October. And we think that's important. We think it's important that you have that transparent, open, visible, sometimes protracted process that concludes in a time frame that people have the ability to look at it, listen to what they heard, and make a decision as to whether the decisions that were made by us reflect their community values when they go to vote. And as you know, because you've sat there for many years, but as not everybody knows, the county does not reveal word one of its budget. The process doesn't begin until after Election Day. And I think that's a very dramatic difference and a loss in transparency that the county's process entails. As you're describing, there are parts of the budget that were approved last night that still don't even really exist. And that's a hard way to run a railroad. So we will continue to make every effort to do things in the transparent way that we do, so that the public can participate, so the public can see what happened. And I think that the results are positive.
I could not disagree.
That way. So, but I appreciate you coming in. You do this on a regular basis. You keep not only us updated with your reports, but the community at large, and
Thank you.
and I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum this evening? Hearing none, we will continue with our agenda. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve and file our minutes for the November 28, 2018 Town Board meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. We will now go to our public hearing for the night. This is a public hearing concerning a number of tree removals, trees at 44 Model Lane, 1 Tyburn Way, 81 and 91 Penfield Road, 205 Dunroven Lane, 218 Mayflower Drive, and 87 North St. Regis Drive. We have, this is scheduled for a public hearing. Dan, have the necessary legal notices been given in this matter?
Yes, Supervisor. Notice was published in the November 29th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
Thank you. Notice having been given, I hereby declare this public hearing to be open. You will see in your packet material, photographs of these various trees. I'm just looking to see the Penfield Road. Trees, are those in here? 99. 99. We do have correspondence concerning that property, and I know, Mike, you have you reviewed those trees. I've reviewed those trees, so they were noticed. Legal notice having been given, and of course, Dan, that includes not only publication but also mailing to affected property owners and adjacent property owners, and that has all been completed. Dan, that was all done.
Supervisor Malley, that is, the mailings to the individual property owners came out of our office.
Okay.
That is correct.
Good, all right. The notice having been given, I declare these public hearings to be open. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this public hearing? Yes, sir, come on up. If you would come up and state your name and address, and the floor is yours.
Good evening. Mark Angeline, 43 Model Lane, so adjacent to 44 Model Lane. I have no objections to the removal of the tree. I was really just as a adjacent homeowner curious into the process of, one, how it was identified that the tree should be removed, and then two, when it will be removed and what steps will be taken as far as removing the debris.
I'll give that to Mike Ion, our Commissioner of Public Works.
Thanks. We maintain our trees. We are Tree City USA, so we go through our trees and look at them. And sometimes we look at trees because homeowners request that we look at their trees. We also have an annual inspection. So this tree was identified as a tree that needed to be taken down. So we have a gentleman within our group that specializes in reviewing the trees and assessing the trees. He assessed this tree that it was it needed to come down. It was in bad shape. I'm trying to follow up on all your questions. Is there so basically we go through the process. Since it's a large significant tree, it requires this public hearing, and that's once the public hearing is held, and if the board decides that we're okay to move ahead, we'll move ahead to take the tree down. When we'll take it down, it's hard to say. We use a subcontractor to take it down. If authorized tonight, I would say within at least 3 months the tree would come down.
And the debris from the tree, is that removed same day, same week, or?
Debris from the tree will be taken as they take the tree down. The stump will not be ground that same day, but it'll be ground at a later time. The new tree will be planted spring.
Okay, and that's fair. I was just curious because I have a very similar age silver maple, so I was just curious as far as the diagnosis of that. So that was really all.
We can certainly come out and look at it.
Okay, that'd be
So
great.
So make a note, and we'll send our guys out.
And silver maples are tough.
I know.
There are a number of neighborhoods in town where a large part, and in a couple of cases, almost the entire canopy consists of silver maples. And they're beautiful trees. They grow very large, but as they get that large and that old, they do get weak. And obviously that becomes problematic. It's not a tree that we're planting today. We do have a list of trees that we use for our street trees. The species that are salt resistant, that are typically slower growing maybe, but stronger as a result. Trees that tend not to drop a lot. Catalpa, for example, is one of the trees we use, but it's not a catalpa that has the little cigars that, that some varieties of catalpas have. So, yeah, I'm sure we can get someone out and take a look at that. We don't want to cut them willy-nilly.
Right.
We just are cognizant of the fact that over time, silver maples particularly can become vulnerable.
Which I appreciate. Thank you.
I know we have correspondence from someone concerning the arborvitae at 99 Penfield Road, and before we close tonight, I will ask that that be specifically included in the record. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Come on up. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Tony Lacurdo. I live at 61 Lime Rock Lane.
Thank you for your
So-
correspondence.
Oh,
Yes.
no problem. So it's across the street from where the arborvitae are scheduled to be removed. I understand the removal of the arborvitae. They get old, they start to droop, and I understand exactly what's going on. And sometimes it's very difficult to trim them back when they get of that age. I'm not opposed to it. My only thought is that they do two things. They provide a sound barrier to the expressway, and they also provide some privacy for the neighbors in that area. So my thoughts are, as I understand that they need to come down, but are there funds for replacements? Because we're not talking a small area. We are talking a long stretch of that particular road, Lime Rock. And so my thoughts were, as if there is money in the budget for replacement of arborvitae or some other type of sound deadening or visually appealing tree that would like seclude the other homes from the area.
The short answer to that question is yes.
Okay.
But those of you that have watched these meetings know that I'm not always very good at giving just the short answer, so I'll expand on that a little bit.
Should I sit down?
Touche. We, as Mike mentioned, we are a Tree City USA, and part of becoming a Tree City USA is committing financially to support our tree canopy, and that is part of our policy, that as we take trees down wherever possible, we will replace them. We replace them with varieties that make sense in a streetscape setting. We replace them typically with varieties that there's been some consultation with neighbors to discuss what their preferences are. As you've indicated, you're looking for something that is of a screening kind of nature. I did go out, I did look at the trees, and I've spoken with our commissioner about them, and I know that there are ribbons tagged on some of them, which indicate the ones that would actually be taken out. They do encroach, in some cases, a couple of feet, actually into the pavement itself. Sure. They really narrow the pavement down, as you well know, living there. And that's of course problematic, as well as, yes, they're leaning in. The backside is obviously dying off, which seems to make them lean all the more in. So I appreciate your thoughtful way of looking at understanding that they may have to get taken down, but want something else. And we will certainly, I know Mike and our people will sit down and talk to the Lime Rock neighbors about what makes sense there. There's not a lot of room.
Sure.
It drops off to the fence, and,
Yes.
and as you go, I'm not trying to get my direction straight, but that sort of narrows off a little bit, so you do start to run out of room for the planting, but there's clearly room to get something planted a little farther back, and hopefully have a permanent, attractive tree canopy there that, meets the neighborhood needs.
Sure, sure.
It won't grow that big overnight.
Yeah, I know that's not going to happen. Like I said, those trees have probably been there for quite a few years. But something would be better than just an empty field there. So, just a thought.
Supervisor Malley, the tree council had recommended we do look at planting some evergreens there.
Good.
So that's what we intend to take a look at.
Fine. Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on this matter?
I need just a few minutes to research an issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shall we move on to the next item and,
That would be fine if we could keep the public hearing
Yeah,
open.
we will do
and,
that.
Then just proceed with your other business matters, and we'll come back to it.
good, thank you.
Supervisor Malley?
Yeah.
I also received emails from 213 Mayflower regarding the tree at 218 Mayflower Drive. The email had indicated there's no issues with the removal of the tree, but they offered their yard if we couldn't plant it in the vicinity of the existing tree, they offer their yard that they'd like to see a replanted tree.
And sometimes we, of course, do have to do that, where the location of the existing tree doesn't make sense because of sight lines or something else. We may sometimes plant nearby, so that's a welcome invitation. Thank you.
And
That
I
was 213 Mayflower, you said?
13 Mayflower,
Okay.
right. And then I also received another email here, both these came in this week,
Okay.
from 37 Model Lane. They don't question the need to remove the tree, they just want to make sure that the trees are replanted.
Okay. I don't know whether you have those, electronically, or you can share those hard copy, but we'll include those as well in the record of tonight's public hearing.
I can share the hard copy.
All right, good. And then we'll hold that public hearing open for the moment. We'll continue to the next item, which is in fact a proposal to set a public hearing to consider the installation of a stop sign at the intersection of Sunset Drive and Orchard Drive. Can I have a motion on that matter, please?
Yes, with respect to the matter, to set a public hearing date for January 9th, 2019 for proposed installation of a stop sign at the intersection of Sunset and Orchard Drives, I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
I would note that we did discuss this matter at the Public Works Committee earlier this week, looked at the map of this. Sunset intersects with Orchard very close to the intersection of Orchard and Monroe Avenue. The stop sign would only be on Sunset, heading sort of westbound, where it would intersect with Orchard is what is proposed. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on setting that public hearing for January 9th?
I look forward to speaking in favor of that at the public hearing.
It is your neighborhood. Then Dan, if you would, please call the roll on that.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Malley.
Aye. We've added a few communications, but those are all into the public hearing. We'll go to the committee reports then. Community Services, Robin?
Thanks, Bill. The Community Services Committee has not met in the intervening timeframe since our last town board meeting. We will next meet next Wednesday, December 19th, 2018, at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside School, 220 Idlewood Road. As always, members of the public are welcome to attend.
Thanks, Robin. Jason, Finance?
Yes, the Finance and Administrative Services Committee met on December 4th. Each of the items that were reviewed at the meeting will appear on tonight's agenda. The one item for discussion was a reminder that our FASC meeting for December 18th has been canceled because we will not be meeting on December 26th. Therefore, our town board will not be meeting on December 26th. Therefore, the FASC meeting of December 18th is canceled. So our next FASC meeting will be held on Wednesday, January 2nd. It will be held immediately after our organizational meeting of the town board. Which will start, well, the organizational meeting will start at 12. We'll meet immediately after at 1 o'clock. The meeting will take place at the Stage Conference Room here in Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. Public safety, Chris.
Bill, on December 11th, I chaired the Public Safety Committee meeting, and we had reports from Brighton Ambulance that they had 430 calls for the month of November, with 5,519 year-to-date calls, which is up about 6%, which is a slightly lower increase than had been tracking, but still a significant rise in the number of ambulance calls.
They did say November was not as busy a month, didn't
Right.
have the same increase as other recent
Again,
months.
they're studying that to see, to make certain that we're able to meet those needs. Of course, along those lines, we now have a new building, which will enhance our service, and there was an open house held, which was quite an event, and it's a beautiful facility.
And although they had to limit the invitations to that ribbon cutting simply because of parking, but Brighton Volunteer Ambulance has indicated that they will be holding some open houses with tours of the new facility in January. And, you know, they've always been happy to, you know, when people stop by, to take people through. They have a number of other activities there, like their medical equipment lending. So people sometimes knock at the door, and they're very proud to show off their new.
Yeah, it's a great new facility. It was well attended by both local and state politicians as well, elected officials.
And law enforcement, you know, public safety folks from around the area. Yeah.
Also, the Chief discussed working with the University of Rochester on their new stroke response vehicle and the protocols involved. That's a tremendous community asset, one of only apparently 23 in the country. That is a specialized vehicle that's staffed with a neurologist and EMTs and nurses to respond to stroke calls. At the same time, we need to be well coordinated with our own response services, and they're going to continue to discuss that with the University of Rochester. Brighton Fire reported that they had 2,329 calls year to date, and Chief McAdam attended his last meeting of the Public Safety Committee with his anticipated retirements after 7 years of service. Aaron Hiller is elected chief of the department. Tomorrow night, there'll be a community information meeting at the Indian Landing School about the future use and staffing of Fire Station 3 on the east side of town. And that will be at 7 o'clock at the station. Is that correct?
No, at Indian Landing
Oh,
School.
I just said that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Indian Landing School, excuse me. Department of Public Works discussed Landing Road sidewalks as well as Edgewood Avenue sidewalks, and discussion about East Avenue improvements, and more about that later. The police report was deferred to a later discussion of individual items. From there, though, we discussed Torrington Road speed concerns, and the chief reported on that and review of speed data with covert data collection and enforcement to follow as staffing will allow. Also, discussion was had in response to the appearance of a Brooklawn Drive resident about speed concerns, and again, the chief talked about the volume of traffic on what has turned into or are continued to be both cut-through and thoroughfares, with a substantial amount of traffic volume in a residential area, and it's of grave concern. And a quite wide-ranging discussion of different traffic calming alternatives, whether it be speed humps or just simply grooving or painting, or what we can do to respond to the volume there. And as Council Member Wilt responded or discussed, that this is not something that's simply historic, but has grown in acuteness as the volume of employment at the University of Rochester has increased, and that we are going to engage with the University of Rochester to see what we can do to help level out perhaps the volume of commuter traffic at different times of day. So it's a matter of great concern. Also, a resident came in and wanted to continue her discussion of the school crossing and sidewalks along French Road so that the children can get across French Road. And also what she felt was, and she clocked herself, I thought that was interesting as well, using an internet app, the speed of vehicles passing along French Road during rush hour at the same time that the school is in session and children are commuting themselves. And that the chief again indicated that he would provide education and enforcement as staff and time allows, and look at various other alternatives and perhaps a change of signage to alert folks that apparently are ignoring the reality that French Road is a middle school, excuse me, a grammar school that needs a safe environment for the children to cross and walk along that street. And we are looking closely at that as well. An issue that I had raised was firearm storage, was discussed, firearm storage in the town, and mandating that those folks with firearms maintain the firearm in a safe condition and locked in their homes or vehicles or anywhere at any time except when they are within the immediate control of the gun owner. And we looked at a draft provision or code provision that council provided, and we appreciate his help, and some fine-tuning of the language of that. We also discussed the hope that the state would take action on that as well, and that it could be statewide. But we've waited a long time for this action, perhaps with the change in the balance in the Senate and the Assembly now, that this has greater chance of passing at the state level. And we're hopeful for that, but we'll continue to move forward. I hope we continue to move forward with that provision of the Brighton Code nonetheless until the state does take action and we can coordinate with them.
And I do, and I think it's also important to note, Chris, you did some additional research and shared a number of safe gun storage laws from other jurisdictions, both within New York State and outside New York State, and having that input is also
before
helpful.
here, but it's something of great concern. Will it cut down on mass shootings? No.
We don't know what it'll do.
But at the same time, once
We
we
don't
know
know
what
what
it
it will
will
do.
make our children safer.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
one of the things of greatest concern, and something that was particularly striking to me, was the number of suicides by guns. Whereas Massachusetts has a gun storage provision, their teenage suicides, a tragedy that's always going to exist, nonetheless, only 9% of those teen suicides are by guns in Massachusetts, whereas in the rest of the country, it's 29%. And that's just a very striking statistic alone. But if there's 78 children injured or killed every day from guns, and of those, I believe 12 are fatal. And this is just something that can be addressed and should be addressed, and we'll do it locally until the state takes action, and we'll work with them as well. So we discussed that at length.
And just to be clear, when I say we don't know what it'll do, I mean, what I really mean to say is we don't know about any specific incident, but we do know that safer storage of guns will have impact on reducing some of these incidents where guns in the house, as you say, whether it's a child. I've had some discussion with people who work in the senior community. You know, it's interesting. We talk about taking the keys away from someone who can no longer drive. They have that same concern with the firearms that are in the house. So that's another potential place where we, you know, where it's very important and where safe storage can avoid tragedy.
And the chief had previously expressed, not concern, but a question about how the police would be expected to enforce this. We do not anticipate going into people's homes and searching, but as most laws are enforced in the breach, that would be the case here as well. if a weapon is found out of the hands of the licensed owner, the police are going to want to know why. And we have an expectation, and I think responsible gun owners have that same expectation as residents, that the guns will be handled safely in all respects. And that means that they be locked up in a tamper-proof container or with trigger lock or some other such device like a cable lock. And it's not that great of a burden. One area we did discuss was transport of guns. Many times gun owners will have guns on their person, it's quite common, and then leave the vehicle perhaps to go in for some entertainment, perhaps into a bar or whatever, and throw it in the glove box. That's not a satisfactory use. Yes, you're right not to wear it into the someplace like a restaurant like that, but at the same time, it is not safe in your glove box. And it is not safe in your trunk. Both are not really tamper resistant. They can be opened quite readily. It's an expectation that I hope that we will express that can be followed by our residents, if nothing less than that. But more than that, that people will abide by the law, which will be backed up by criminal sanction. So we had that discussion at length and the actual language. Also, we mentioned that the Country Club of Rochester had a fireworks show coming up on New Year's, and they had notified us by mail and posted on the town website and we posted on the town website that don't be surprised when the fireworks go off at the Country Club of Rochester. Next meeting will be January 8th at 8 o'clock a.m. And the public is always welcome to attend, and I'd be really interested in the public's thoughts about the gun storage matter as well.
Thank you, Chris. The Public Works Committee.
I chaired that one as well. Excuse me while I go to that report. We had our meeting on December 4th at 9 o'clock a.m., the downstairs meeting room, where we talked about the Edgewood sidewalk from Stony Brook to Monroe Avenue at the request of several residents that came in. That neighborhood has a number of children, and they would like to be able to walk safely to school. Sidewalks are a challenge along Edgewood. There are sidewalks on both sides of the street at various places and across the bridge, et cetera. But for that last distance of about 220 feet, the sidewalk ends and doesn't continue all the way up to Monroe. And I think we'd all like to address that. Unfortunately, fortunately, our town is becoming more and more walkable as we add more and more sidewalks, but we find these gaps are frustrating and are being brought to our attention. Mike Guyan's office, or Mike himself, did an estimate for a 7-foot wide sidewalk across this 220 feet, along with the installation of curbing, and it might estimate to be at $146,000. There's nothing that's cheap when it comes to public works, but and the discussion was had what funding resources there might be, and also the potential of forming a sidewalk district to fund the construction costs, which would expedite the installation of the sidewalk. The project will be included in future capital.
Included.
Well, if I know my guy, and I expect to see it in the as a request in the plan, but that it be incorporated in the future capital improvement plans, and it's just simply a matter of finding the necessary funds to do it. And there are a number of other capital projects, sidewalk projects that have been proposed around town. We wish we could do them all. Also, as we've discussed, that this is a subject of our incentive zoning process as well. That is a common request that developers, as part of their enhancement of properties, include sidewalks. And sometimes they're at a distance, but related somewhat to that. As an example, the improvements over on Clinton with the DeMarco Group will include sidewalks in that immediate neighborhood along Clinton, but also over on Elmwood. And we're going to be left with a couple of gaps, but we're hoping to see slowly but surely that we connect all these different footpaths for the town. We also had communications regarding the removal of the Lime Rock Lane arborvitae and discussed those as well and the concerns of the residents there. and we've heard those earlier. Also, as a matter we've been following for quite some time are the buildings along East River Road, which are in terrible shape in some instances. Ramsey Banner reported that his department had inspected them and found that 2 of them appear to be unsafe structures and warrant attention. We've sent a good neighbor letter to the homeowner who resides, or I'm not sure if he resides there actually, but they relate to property on the other side of River Road, and we'll see what kind of response we get from that. And the town will continue to inspect and review the condition of these structures. Ultimately, we may have to move towards demolition, and we would encourage the homeowner to do that. Discussion was had also regarding the East Avenue sidewalk, let's say extension or connection with the sidewalks that are being developed on the Pittsford side of East Avenue, connecting into the village there, and we would dearly love to be able to connect them all the way to French Road School, but we have a significant impediment there, which is an embankment and some very mammoth trees in the Brighton stretch, which is, and Mike, that's about how many feet?
So over 300 feet, Chris.
300 feet, and Mike Guine's office has been looking at different alternatives of how to approach that. It just simply, it's not possible to simply put a sidewalk along that edge of the street there beyond the curb, because there's a significant stone retaining wall, and that stone retaining wall goes up for 20 feet high, or?
No, it's probably close to 6-7 feet high.
6-7 feet, excuse me. But as you look up higher, you see these mammoth trees that as we try to move that retaining wall to allow the construction of the sidewalk, we then get into the roots of those trees. We looked at other alternatives for perhaps taking a sidewalk up behind the retaining wall or above at a height, and behind the trees, but there did not appear to be any feasible way to install it, again, without removing these trees. The cost would also be substantial, and Mike had estimated it would be over $300,000 to do that. At the same time, the shoulder of the road at that stretch, now with the reconstruction of the roadway, will have a 4.5-foot shoulder, which again we have to balance against the safety needs. Now, shoulder is not a sidewalk and is not a perfect result, but at the same time, when we look at the cost benefit of things, we have to consider what alternatives there are, and it could be traversed on foot in relative safety along that shoulder, which is fairly wide. So all in all, we're not encouraged that we really can make this connection, not because of lack of desire, but simply a physical obstacle that is not present on the Pittsford side as they move with their project. We talked about the 2019 meeting schedule, and we have a bit of a conflict with 3 of our meetings with the public safety meetings, and I'll give those dates here in a moment. And there was also a discussion regarding the West Henrietta Roadhouse, which is behind some commercial properties. I said, where's the roadhouse? What is this?
It's a house, it's a
Porky's
house.
or something? No,
No,
it's not that kind of roadhouse.
No.
All right.
No, it's a house.
It's behind some of the commercial properties, which, and whether or not that was going to have to be addressed as a demolition as well. And then we talked about the trees, which are again the subject of discussion tonight, and Mike updated us on the Highland Crossing Trail and a bid, and the bids are due on December 21st. Our next meeting is January 8th, 2019 at 9:00 a.m. or following the public safety meeting. The public safety meeting will be at 8. And typically it's concluded in about an hour or so. It went quite a long time this past week, but hopefully we will be able to convene the Public Works at 9:00. Similarly, on September 10th and October 8th, again, we'll schedule the Public Works meeting for 9:00, but with knowledge that the public safety meeting will immediately precede that at 8. And hopefully will not run over. So Next meeting, January 8th, 9 o'clock. Hope to see everyone there.
Thank you. Whew. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris. We'll go back now to the public hearing. And basically, the discussion that you saw among Ken and Mike, and we heard a reference to the fact that there was a typo.
Right, if I can just address
Address, yeah,
this.
go
So,
ahead, Ken.
in the resolution that set the public hearing, in the correspondence that was in your packet, in the resolution, the public notice that was published in the newspaper, the addresses on Penfield Road that were specified were 81 and 91 Penfield Road, as appears in your agenda. The 81 is correct, but the 91's not. So those arborvitaes are actually on Lime Rock Lane, adjacent to 81 and 99 Penfield Road. The report itself is correct and specifies 99. So the action I'm recommending is that if the board is so inclined, it may take action on all of the other tree removals in this resolution, other than the arborvitaes on Lime Rock Lane. That tree removal should be removed from the resolution, and in fact, I've already emailed to each of you and to the town clerk a revised resolution that omits that tree removal or those tree removals on Penfield Road.
So 81 would still be in, 99 would not.
81 and 99.
You're gonna take
91
them
would
both out?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense because there's, as I understand it,
That's
and
fine.
looking at the map.
They
with Mike,
are contiguous, and the
yeah,
trees.
there's actually,
front on-
most
on
of the
the
trees are in front of, most of the arborvitaes are in front of 81, and then there's just a couple hanging over into the 99 lot. But it
That's
just
fine.
makes sense to do them together and authorize them together so that they can be
Okay.
done together. So what I would recommend then is also holding open the public hearing relative only to the removal of the Lime Rock arborvitaes, and having that public hearing continued on January 9th. And I would ask that the town board have the town clerk publish another public notice, which would have to be published no later than December 30th, and have the Department of Public Works send out another round of neighbor letters, which would have to go out no later than December 20th.
Ken, is all of that in your revised, is the setting of the new public hearing and the notice in your revised?
No, all I did was
Okay,
remove the
all right.
one.
That's
so-
fine, then I'll read it in as we,
What I would suggest is you take action on the revised resolution that omits the Penfield Road / Lime Rock Lane arborvitaes. Adopt that, and then perhaps take a second vote on setting or continuing the public hearing. But I would ask that when you get to it, which is going to be momentarily, that you close the public hearing on all of the tree removals except for the removal of the arborvitaes on Penfield Road.
is there anyone else that would like to address any of these trees? And by the way, we will include, to the extent there has been discussion tonight about the properties at 81 and 89, and 81 and 99 Penfield Road, we will, when we reschedule that public hearing, we will include those in the record of that second public hearing. But is there anyone else that would like to address the board on any of these trees tonight? Hearing none, then I declare the public hearing to be closed with respect to all properties other than the properties located at 81 and 99 Penfield Road. And I would initially ask for a motion on the revised resolution that the town attorney has just circulated, which would authorize the removal of each of the other trees other than the arborvitae located at 81 and 99 Penfield Road.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you, everybody who engaged in that. And Dan, please call the roll.
Chat. Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Now, can I have a motion to continue the public hearing with respect to trees located adjacent to 81 and 99 Penfield Road, and further directing and that public hearing would be held at our town board meeting on January 9, 2019, and further directing that notice be sent to the adjoining property owners not later than December 20th as required by our town code, and also that notice be published and posted not later than December 30th pursuant to the town code. Can I have that motion?
I'll have to look at publishing dates, because with the holidays, everything's out of whack.
Yep.
So I'll have to confirm that that date is reachable.
I would think that
I think it is, but I'll have to double check and make sure.
Because the publication is a 10-day. The postcards is a 20-day, so there's got to be an issue that's still coming out.
I would think, I know
Okay,
there was
well,
3 different
that's the way the
dates.
motion reads. Can I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Dan, hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll move on down now to new business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, Bill, yesterday I reviewed claims totaling $2,434,329.27. Notable claims include the Henderson Truck Equipment in the amount of $48,566 to replace a dump body box for truck number 63 in our highway fleet. Also to the New York State Retirement System for the employer's share of mandated retirement contributions for the period April 1, 2018 through March 31, 2019 in the amount of $2,030,000 or $2,030,047. Also to Waste Management of New York Rochester in the amount of $71,374.95. Representing refuse removal and disposal services for town areas and special refuse districts. And also to Municipal Solutions in the amount of $8,959.20, representing 2018 fiscal advisor fees related to the issuance of highway, sewer, and parkland bonds. And finally, to the Humane Society of Greater Rochester, in the amount of $5,731.60, representing payment for dog training classes, a program sponsored through our rec department, of course, which was financed through participant fees. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Next matter, Robin.
On the matter that seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with the Rochester Monroe County Youth Bureau for reimbursement not to exceed $7,085 for the town's 2018 funding for the development of the Positive Youth Development / Community Service Initiative. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is a contract we enter into every year. We have done so for a number of years, and it is helpful for the work that Becky and our Recreation Department does with the Brighton Believes program for our kids in the Brighton Central School District. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Robin, why don't you do the next one as well?
On the matter that seeks to approve the declaration of 2 upright pianos as surplus to be sold or otherwise disposed, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
We discussed this, and Ken, I don't know whether you and Becky have had a chance to talk further about the valuation of these pianos. I don't think it affects our decision, but I'm interested in whether we think they'll have to be sold or...
We talked briefly. Becky is going to make an effort to auction them off.
Okay.
If she's able to find a buyer. I mean, oftentimes the value of an old piano is exceeded by the cost of relocation. And so if she is able to find a buyer and we're able to get some money for these, that's great. And if not, then they will need to be simply disposed of. But the resolution gives her the authority to do.
Good. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with the Animal Hospital of Pittsford to provide boarding and veterinary services beginning January 1, 2019 through December 31, 2019. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Again, this is something we do every year, part of our animal control services. That is the animal hospital that's used for boarding should animals be picked up. There is a very slight increase in some of the fees, reflecting increases that Pittsford Animal Hospital has imposed on us that we pass through. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Bill, only a collateral matter. I've had several people approach me about the lack of a lighted sign at the Pittsford Animal Hospital, which I've been told is contrary to our code. But several people have said they've had an animal in distress, needed to get emergency service, and found that they've been frustrated in trying to find it because of the lack of a sign. But perhaps that's something we can put on the Public Works agenda and see if there's any ability to.
Our code specifies that we must contract with a facility that has a lighted sign?
No, not that we must, but that the addition of a lighted sign would be helpful. But yet they're frustrated by the
okay, I guess
code that we can't, they've been told that.
Yeah, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that Mr. Warner is commenting on
Oh, okay.
this
I said
particular
it's a
matter.
collateral matter.
Okay.
Excuse me.
He's just saying it is something to do with the animal, Pittsburgh Veterinary Hospital, but not particularly this matter.
Okay.
No, it's not, it does not relate to that at all, but just something that we might consider on the Public Works agenda.
I don't know if it's a matter that needs to go on the Public Works agenda. It might be a matter that's simply a communication to the Pittsford Animal Hospital, letting them know that we've heard from some people and they would appreciate, better lighting. Is that really the issue?
No, the animal hospital has told the patrons or whatever, the patients, that they're not permitted to have a lighted sign, and they're frustrated by our code. Is that the case, or?
We'd have to look. I don't know whether there's ever been an application made.
I don't know that there's been an application made, nor I just don't know the sign code.
Well, before we start putting it on the agenda of a committee, let's get a little bit more information.
I'll follow up with our building and
Okay.
planning department tomorrow.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
Good. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. Chris?
Next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Elmer's Brighton Garage for police vehicle maintenance and repair services beginning January 1, 2019 through December 31, 2019, with optional renewals for up to 3 years. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Any discussion? This is for maintenance of police vehicles. This was the lowest responsive quote that was able to provide the requisite services and turnaround.
Done business with Elmer's for many years with that. They've done a great job.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract renewal with Lifetime Benefit Solutions Incorporated for the administration of employee flexible spending accounts. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And this, again, these accounts are managed each year, part of our employee benefit programs. And if there's no further discussion, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jason, why don't you do the next one?
Sure. The next one seeks to approve the amendment to the Fixed and Infrastructure Assets Policy and Procedure Statement by increasing the threshold for capitalizing fixed assets from $1,000 to $5,000. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is a little more esoteric, but it's, it's something,
I was glad I didn't get picked for that.
well, it's something that Ray Wager, our auditor, in his report last year, he comes out and presents, his proposed audit findings to the Finance Committee. And one of his thoughts was that we are capitalizing an awful lot of individual pieces of capital stuff, capital equipment, capital items, because the threshold for doing so is relatively very low at $1,000. You know, when we do our capital improvement plan, for example, our threshold for looking at whether we want a department to submit is $20,000. So we, for our own internal purposes, for a different internal purpose, but use a much higher threshold. He suggested either 5,000 or 10,000 as more realistic, more pragmatic, and frankly more cost-effective levels. The more items are individually capitalized, the more work is involved, and potentially the more expensive the audit. And this will still individually track, I don't remember the exact number, but a couple hundred,
Little over 200
little over
items.
200 items. Still individually, items that are valued new at over $5,000. So that was his recommendation, and the Finance Committee affirmed that and recommends this action. We have a motion and a second. Anybody else want to touch that one? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jason, I'll give you one more.
Sure. The next matter seeks to approve 2018 budget transfers and appropriations necessary to reflect changes since the adoption of the 2018 budget. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
These are, as often as the case as we get to the end of the year, these are some transfers that reflect actual spending. There are monies that are available, but that are available in different accounts than were anticipated.
Different classifications of accounts, so we're typically transferring, typically in the same department, from one classification to another, although that's not with every department, but this is some preliminary housekeeping that we need to do prior to closing. We'll be back again for some more.
Thanks, Paula. These are always very detail-oriented, but very important actions for us to take. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on any of those? There's a number of items there that are listed. Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Robin?
The next matter seeks to authorize a supervisor to execute a contract renewal with Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $310,000. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And again, this is a contract that we enter into each year. Brighton Volunteer Ambulance provides services to townwide to the Brighton Volunteer Ambulance District, which does extend across the entire town. And as a part of that, through our special volunteer ambulance district, the taxpayers do support that effort. This year proposed to be an amount of $310,000, which is consistent with the budget that was passed back in October. We have a motion and a second on that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
I apologize. Who was the second on that?
Jason.
Jason, thank you. Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. Chris.
Next item is to approve the declaration of one 2009 Chevy G4500 road rescue ambulance as surplus to be sold via online municipal auction or regular auction held in the spring of 2019. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
This is simply the routine action on the part of Brighton Volunteer Ambulance disposing of almost 10-year-old vehicle as part of their routine vehicle upkeep. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. The last matter we have on the agenda, or at least in the new business portion of the agenda, is filling the town board vacancy. Let me just get us to where we're at. Under Section 64, subsection 5 of the New York State Town Law, in other words, the New York State law that governs towns, the town board is responsible for filling any vacancies on the town board. And in this case, the vacancy we have was caused by the passing of our good friend and colleague, Councilmember Jim Vogel. Following Jim's passing, the town put out a media release asking any residents of Brighton that were interested in being considered to fill that vacancy to send to my office a letter and a resume indicating their interest in being considered to be appointed to the town board. 9 people sent us a letter and a resume, and the town board interviewed each of those 9 candidates. And I must say, those interviews I found to be very, very engaging in each case. Each candidate was very, very well qualified, brought a lot of different perspectives and experiences. So it was, I thought, for me anyway, great time well spent talking to everybody. Councilmember Vogel's term on the town board would have expired on December 31st, 2021. Now again, under the town law, under that same section of the town law, the person that we appoint tonight will serve through December 31st, 2019. And on Election Day next November, November 2019, there will be a special election held to fill the remaining 2 years of that vacancy. In other words, from January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2021, which would have been the end of Jim's term. Now, under Section 105F of the New York Public Officers Law, which is the New York Open Meetings Law, matters leading to the appointment of a particular person are matters that may be done in executive session. And I will shortly ask for a motion to go into executive session. However, following that executive session, and I will ask for executive session not only on that matter, but on an additional matter, I anticipate that we will come back into open session and make the appointment to fill that vacancy. And then at that time, we will also finish the last few items on the agenda, which are, reports of the supervisor, reports of the clerk and board members. So I will now, and by the way, when we come back out into open session, the broadcast and streaming of the meeting will resume. But I would now ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss the appointment of a particular person to the town board and also to discuss a matter of litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Deanne, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mann?
Aye. Again, we will now go into executive session, and we will come back when we're finished. We moved to come out of executive session at 10 minutes to 9, and we are now back to take action on the appointment to fill the town board vacancy left by the passing of Jim Vogel. And I'm going to call on Councilmember DePonzio to make that motion.
Yes, Bill. With respect to the matter regarding the appointment to fill a town board vacancy, I move that we appoint Christine E. Corrado, a qualified resident of the town of Brighton, effective immediately for a term to expire on December 31st, 2019.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Nay.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Christine, congratulations. We welcome you to the town board. Christine has served the town as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, is currently vice chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, has also served her neighborhood association, and has been active in many, many respects. I really do want to thank everybody that applied, that took the time to come in and speak with us. As I said before, each of those interviews were really very positive events, very engaging people, and these were interviews with people who I know in their own ways have done good things for our town and for our broader community, and will no doubt continue to do so. And we know who you are, and we look to tap those great talents that you bring. So again, thank you for being a part of what was a very difficult but very valuable process for all of us. Matters of the supervisor. I do have a couple of things I want to discuss. Leaves. I saw Mike leave. I think he knew. I think he knew I was going to start talking about leaves. But you know, this is the toughest time of year for our highway crews. Our highway crews, day after day, and it's going to happen again tonight. They've been salting or plowing or both our streets, and then they've been going out and picking up leaves during the day. Those are long days. When they come out at night, the reason that our streets are, even on a, night like last night, we had a very greasy, light, sort of snow ice accumulation. And it was because of the men and women who drive those salt trucks. They were out before dawn, and the roads are in great shape when everybody goes to work. But by then, they're already picking up leaves. And that is a remarkable piece of work that they do. The town has quite a broad geographic. We start at the river, go all the way to Tryon Park, basically. And this time of year, there are days when the snow gets piled so deep that they, one or two, really 1 day, 2 days, I think, that they weren't able to pick up leaves at all. But they will continue to pick up leaves through the end of the year. They're finishing up, they're getting into East Brighton now, finishing the second pass through town of bulk leaves. They will do another complete pass through town before the season is over. Frankly, even this weekend, it's going to warm up, the snow is going to be gone. We know people will be raking those last leaves that fell. You can do that. Feel free to do that. They will get picked up. The one thing I will say again, please remember, don't rake them into the street. I need to tell you why. Part of it's an appearance issue. There are streets where there seems to have been a culture that has developed of raking them into the street. And frankly, they get cars run over them. If the plows hit them, they're thrown back into the street. And there are other streets. Village Lane is a great example. I drove down Village Lane the other day, and kudos to all of you there, because you do leave your leaves on your lawn. The street looks much neater, and I believe they've been picked up now or they're about to be picked up. They're right in that part of town. So please, the other reasons why we ask you not to put them in the street, they're dangerous. They're dangerous for cyclists. They're dangerous for motorists who wind up weaving through, particularly on some of these narrower streets that we're focusing right now with speed and traffic concerns, adding the slalom curves of driving around Leaves makes it all the more difficult. But it also contributes to drainage issues. Sometimes people even pile leaves up on top of storm drains, but you don't have to. Just piling them in the street where the pavement drains into a storm drain can cause neighborhood flooding and ponding issues. And then, of course, when it turns to ice, as it inevitably does this time of year, you can get hazards on the street, but also ponding that turns to ice in your lawn, and that's where. So please, I know you may see a neighbor do it, but what we want you to do with your leaves is leave them on the lawn. We will pick them up. Our crews will be picking them up until the leaves that are put out there this fall are picked up. Just an update as well on community choice aggregation. The towns of Brighton, Pittsford, and Arundecoit and the village of Pittsford have all authorized signing memoranda of understanding with the goal of moving forward to select an administrator for CCA, community choice aggregation. In each case, the communities have expressed very clearly a desire that the default electric option, the electric supply option, would be a 100% renewable source of electricity. Yes, buying in bulk and saving money is a good thing, but buying in bulk and saving money and making it renewable sourced is an even better thing. It is consistent with our comprehensive plan that we've just completed, which was focused on sustainability. It is consistent with the very dire warnings that the President's own administration came out with, that at that level seemed to be ignored. We can't ignore. We cannot ignore. We can't change the world in our little community, but we can move the needle in our little community and in the little communities that surround us. And I think we will be an example, just as the Westchester, which really was the pilot for the state in community choice aggregation, has continued to grow. More communities that weren't part of it to begin with joined because, frankly, they saw the results. And I fervently hope and expect that we will see the results as well, and that other communities will also make this decision to go renewable and make great strides towards sustainability. And then just one more reminder, Chris, you mentioned it already, but I'll remind everybody again. Very important meeting tomorrow night. The Brighton Fire Department meeting, which will be held at 7 o'clock at Indian Landing School. They are looking at options for Station 3. That's the fire station across from the Mercy Mother House and Mercy High School at the corner of Blossom and Clover. They have concerns about the current staffing level and want to look at other staffing potential options. From my perspective, what is important is that service in that part of town continue at a high level of operation. So I think it's important, as different opportunities are looked at there, to always keep that in mind. So they're going to be speaking about a study that they commissioned to update a study that was done of fire and emergency service throughout Brighton back in 2011. They have received grant funding through the SAFER grant program to hire additional paid firefighters, and they are engaged in some efforts to increase volunteer participation. I think that's vitally important. The volunteers who willingly give up time, and particularly time with their families, to go out and respond to fires are really some of the great volunteers in our community. And you may have seen their video. They got grant funding to do that video work. If you know people that are looking for a way to serve their community, becoming a Brighton firefighter is a great way to do it. And so a lot's going to be on the table, but I really want to encourage people, particularly people who live in the northeast part of the town, the Blossom, Browncroft, Penfield Road, North Landing Road, neighborhoods in Brighton. If you're available, please come to the meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Indian Landing School. That's all I have. Ken, matters of the attorney.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Matters of the town clerk.
Just since this is our last meeting of the year before you receive the town and county tax bills, so those will be open on December 31st for those of you who wish to pay in the current calendar year. And the bills should be out right around New Year's. As always, due in full February 10th. Part of the messaging I'm changing over to now is the way the installments are set up. The first installment is also due on February 10th, and the second installment is due February 28th. If you wait on those dates, those hit pretty darn close. So really kind of advising people, think of that first one as being due January 31st. Then you're making one payment a month if you're doing the installments. It's still the interest-free, just as if it would be on the 10th, but why put yourself in that extra crunch to kind of squeeze two payments into the shortest month of the year anyway. Again, as a reminder, we've got the new drop box at the back of the building at entrance number 9 for your convenience, available 24/7. And another new thing we started to do this year, again, way ahead of time, but just looking ahead a little bit. We get a lot of calls regarding people looking for copies of receipts for your tax bills, particularly when the IRS time, in April closes in. So actually on our webpage now, there is you can request that by email.
Great.
So you
Great
don't even have to pick
service.
up the phone. So if you think of it at 9 o'clock at night when you're starting to work on your taxes, send the email right then when you realize you don't have it. Won't answer it until the next morning. I'm not saying I'm going to answer it in the middle of the night, but it will be available. And at townofbrighton.org/tax receipts. Talk to that more as it gets closer, but I just wanted to throw that little tidbit out there as well. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the holiday season.
Thank you, Dan. I really do. That's a great idea, and kudos.
Supervisor, can I go
You
back?
bet.
Yes, because actually, town clerk and I were just exchanging messages. First, I want to congratulate Christine on her appointment to fill the vacancy of Councilmember Vogel. Secondly, since she happens to be here this evening, and if you really wish your appointment to be immediately effective, I might suggest that the town clerk, and have already suggested that the town clerk might want to administer her oath of office this evening before she leaves the building, and have her sign the book so that she can be officially a town board member when she goes home tonight.
Well, that's certainly a thought. The other thought is whether they're a more ceremonial event
Like
as
her
well.
friends and family here, perhaps?
They're not mutually inconsistent.
They are not. No. I would want her to get the full bells and whistles as well.
Good.
But
With that caveat, I agree.
yes, we can. I could see their inviting her family in
Good.
and allowing for that
Good.
to happen.
It's a big deal.
Yes,
You've
of
been
course,
there, and
of course.
you know
But
what a wonderful event
just
it is.
to get that vacancy filled immediately and allow her to participate immediately. I think that would be the thing to do.
Good.
If she's willing.
Matters of the board.
Just wanted to give a quick rec update. Friday, December 14th is a half day of school. If that is a complete surprise to you, you're in luck. There's still spaces in the half-day offerings at Brighton Recreation. Registrations are now being accepted for half-day hoopla, babysitters training, and home alone safety. In addition to that, we still have registrations available in our December recess camp on December 27th, 28th, and 31st. Registrations for all programs may be done online, over the phone, or in person at Brighton Rec. In addition to that, our winter-spring brochures are expected to reach Brighton residents this week, the week of December 17th, next week. We're pleased to announce that we've been hard at work giving our programs and brochure a fresh look for the new year. We've reorganized the brochure to allow greater ease of use, putting valuable information at your fingertips. We've renamed some of our usual program categories to better help you identify the activities and programs that are important to you and your family. And we invite everyone to look through the brochure to see all that we have to offer. And I want to assure everybody that all of your favorite programs are still there. They just might be recategorized. And we do have a number of new and exciting offerings as well. Registration for town residents will begin January 2nd, and for non-residents, it will be the following week, January 9th. Our after-school program is accepting new participants. This is an extremely popular program, and so get in while you can. We hope that you'll join us at our very flexible, affordable after-school program for children in 1st through 5th grades right here at the Brookside Recreation Center. Register for 1 or 5 days per week for the same price. Full details and program handbook can be found at the town website or call Recreation Department for more information at 585-784-5260. Thanks so much. That's all we have.
Thanks, Robin. Looking backwards, recreation, I got to meet Frosty the Snowman last Friday night. And boy, the kids were really, really enjoying fun with Frosty over at the town park. A few of them were a little scared. When he had that top hat on, he was even taller than I am, and I have the photographic evidence to prove it. But most of the kids really enjoyed themselves greatly. I also just want to mention among upcoming events and upcoming scheduling, of course, in January, Martin Luther King Day, January 21st, is a town holiday, and Town Hall is closed that day. The Brighton Memorial Library is open, and the Brighton Memorial Library is open really in recognition of the importance that Dr. King placed upon education, and also the opportunity to hear one of the truly great people that you will ever meet in this community, Dr. David Anderson, with the Rochester Black Storytellers, who come into the library for really a remarkable family experience, learning about Dr. King and African American history. So while it's a ways out, but I do want to focus on that day. There are many community activities. I always make a point of going downtown to the community celebration that is held down at the Eastman Theater, but the library's event that day is really something for families and for everyone not to miss. Any other board members? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailey?
Aye, thank you. Our next town board meeting will be January 2nd at noon. That is our annual organization meeting, which we do every year. Is largely I hesitate to call it housekeeping, but it's matters that we are required to do every year or every 2 years in some cases, for the continued government operation. That'll be at noon, and then January 9th will be our next regular meeting at 7 o'clock in the evening. And hope to see all of you then. Very happy holidays and Happy New Year to everyone.